Hey everybody, and welcome back to the I'll Do Cycling YouTube channel, where today we're going to be taking a look at the VELOGAMES Paris Roubaix, one of the most special races of the year, the infamous cobblestones that the riders are going to have to take on. It's a fan favourite, and it's going to be made up of 30 cobbled sectors over 259 kilometres. The forecast is apparently going to be not very warm and potentially a bit rainy, so you're certainly going to be looking at some riders who are particularly good in those sorts of conditions, like Pedersen and Pogačar are generally quite good there. So is Van der Poel. Generally, all the favourites are, so it doesn't really count for too much. But yeah, Paris-Roubaix obviously characterised by 3 5-star sectors in the Tlouet and Dallenberg, and you've also got the Mont-Saint-Pével and the Calafort de l'Arbre over here. Generally, you see the winning move going in the kind of Mont-Saint-Pével, Orchies-Albercé sort of combination there. Seems to be quite a favourite spot to attack. So, yeah, let's go take a look at VELOGAMES, I suppose, is the big thing. Pogačar is the name on everybody's lips going into this race because he hasn't done it before. He's a debutant, and everybody's kind of wondering how he's going to be doing. I guess my 2 cents on it is that from a VELOGAMES perspective, at 34 credits, he essentially needs to win this race to be worth it. Second and third place is going to be fine as well, but realistically, you're going to be wanting Pogačar to be winning at this sort of cost, and very similarly, Van der Poel. You could go with both of them. It does limit your team a little bit, but it's possible. Pogačar, I'm just not sure about winning. He doesn't fit the archetype of somebody who does well in Roubaix. When you look at all the statistics and all the data of the people who have done well in this race over the last 10 years, Pogačar, in fact, I might even pull up a graph on this. I do have one. Pogačar doesn't really fit too well into the kind of archetypal role. You're generally looking at somebody who's 74, 78 kilos, who's probably at least 185 centimeters, and Pogačar just isn't that. You need a lot of power. I'm not saying that Pogačar doesn't, but generally the rouleur types tend to do better. So Poggies would be a bit of an enigma if he did well, if he won at least. But I still think that he'll be inside the top 5. That's my belief on it, based upon the weather, based upon his ability to do well on cobbles in lots of other races. Most notably the Ronde last weekend. So I think Pogačar is a safe pick, but I think he limits your team. And I think in terms of VELOGAMES point scoring, it might be better to leave him out and go with some people and spread your points a little bit more. Van der Poel I also like for this race. I think the ultimate safe combination for this race would be to go with Pogačar and Van der Poel, and probably go with Filippo Ganna, very much just a Milano Sanremo team with 3 4-credit riders at the bottom. You could do that. I think Van der Poel, 3rd place in Dolonde last week. Obviously, he was dropped by Pogačar, but Roubaix is a different ball game. It's flatter, there's more draft going on, and you generally find that, he's won the last 2 editions of this race. And I think that a lot of people might look at last weekend and go, oh, he finished 3rd place. He must be, on the decline. But I just think that's kind of a load of rubbish. I think Van der Poel is still a favourite for this race, so I think he's still a good pick. Wout a really interesting one. Again, kind of like in Flanders, I don't think I will be picking him. But that's not to say that he won't do well. It's just that you can't pick Pogačar, Van der Poel and Wout van Aert in the same team. So I think that Wout will inevitably be the one that people will drop first, which makes sense. He was the weakest out of Pogačar, Van der Poel, and Pedersen as well last weekend. So I think Wout will probably not be in a lot of people's teams, but maybe if you're feeling bold, maybe in the cycling fantasy game on the app, you might decide to go with him. Philipsen, interesting one as well. Obviously, he's been 2nd place the last 2 editions, but I don't think a lot of people are talking about him for this race. He hasn't looked brilliant this year, but he's still looked good. He's still a very, very good rider, and perhaps will be overlooked in this race a little bit considering that you got such riders with form around him, like Pedersen, for example, or Ganna and Kung. So Philipsen might go a little bit under the radar, but if Van der Poel wins, you get those assist points, and if Philipsen can then win the sprint for second or third, then you kind of get those reverberating assist points going back and forth between the two of them. So I still think Philipsen's a good pick. I think that Pedersen might be one of the better picks, and because he's a little bit cheaper than, say, he's 8 credits cheaper than Pogačar, and I think that honestly makes Pedersen quite a good value for money pick, dare I say. He could win this race. He's very good at producing a sprint at the end of a race. He finished 3rd place last year. He's in fantastic form. He's been in good form since doing the Cobble Classics this year. So I think Pedersen's really good. Binny probably I wouldn't be picking, or Malir or Milan. They're just kind of sprinters, and at this sort of cost, I'm really needing a bit more certainty. Ganna and Kung, like I mentioned earlier, I really like. I think they're both good choices. They were both inside the top 10 last week in the Ronde. Kung finished higher up, so maybe you favour him a little bit more. Ganna, I think Ineos have got a stronger team than Groupama FDJ, so they'll be able to support Ganna further into the race. So that, again, kind of leans towards Ganna. So that's a bit of a personal preference for you there. Mayus was top 10 last year, but I would say that Ganna or Kung would finish higher up because it's just more of an attacking style of race. So Mayus, he was top 10 last year, and I think he could do that again, but I think that you could definitely go with Ganna or Kung for the same price and get more points. Horich and Velen's probably not. The 20 credit riders, I'd say Pollitt or Stuyven. I wouldn't be going with Christoph. Just because Pollitt has been on the podium of this race. He's been in the top 10 like 3 times. He could get assist points on Pogačar. Him and Pogačar being a very good duo to have in the fight for the win. And then Stuyven obviously assist points on Pedersen. And, finishing inside the top 10 himself, kind of similar to last week. 18 credit riders, maybe Gianni Vermeersch. If you want to do the full Alpecin thing again of Van der Poel, Philipsen, Gianni Vermeersch, and then 3 other Alpecin riders, you can definitely do that still. And that has been the winning team over the last 2 years. So maybe, we'll lightning strike for the 3rd time. So you could do that if you so wanted to. Honestly, the 18 credit riders aren't that appealing to me. They would have to get in a breakaway, and that's just a bit too risky for me at that sort of price. The 16 credit riders, there's a few to point out here. Obviously, you've got Lampard, who's finished on the podium of this race before. You got Piffy, who was 7th place last year, despite crashing. If you remember that, he was in that group with Stefan Kung. So he was doing really good last year, and he was 7th, so that's good. Lawrence Rex has been in the top 10 here before. Turnison was just outside the top 10 of Delonda. I was so tempted. I really wanted to put him on, and I didn't. And I really should have just listened to my gut feeling there. Valanchard was also in the top 10 last year, and Van Baarle's won this race before. So plenty of quality in the 16 credit riders. Personally, I think that Piffy and Turnison are probably my favourites. Piffy hasn't been great this year, but you look back to his results last year and he came and did 7th place sort of a little bit out of nothing, so I'm quite confident with that. And Turnison, I think, can sprint for a top 15 for sure. Valanchard could very well do the same. The 14 credit riders, you've got the Israel Premier Tech kind of contingency, I suppose. Hofstetter, I think, will be their leader, but he doesn't have the greatest history of this race. Dries de Bont was 3rd in Dana, behind Gianni Vermeersch and Matthew Brennan. So he's obviously good on the cobbles, but I think he's going to need to get in the breakaway to do something. He was also top 10 in Dwars-Dorf-Vlaanderen, it's worthwhile mentioning. Florian Vermeersch, 2nd in this race in 2021, when it was also kind of the last time it was set to be a wet and cold affair. So Vermeersch, obviously quite a good choice for that regard. Walscheid has been top 10 here before. I can't remember which year it was. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. Walscheid should be leading the Jake Walula team. They don't have many other kind of, I'd say, like team leaders going on, so Walscheid might get their full support. Fred Wright, yeah, he was alright in Ronda last week. I wanted a little bit better, but maybe he can do something here. The 12 credit riders, obviously Dillier's been on the podium here. Bjerg, possibly. Ivan Garcia Cortina, top 10 last week. I can't believe I recommended him and I didn't put him on. That was unbelievable. Haller was very good in Ronda last week, actually. And Tudor don't have Trent in here, so I think Haller could be an interesting one to consider as well. If not in here, again, in the Cycling Fantasy app, I think that'll be quite an interesting one. And Tim van Dijk obviously was going to be 8th last year, but then got relegated because he went onto the wrong part of the track. And he's looking in kind of similar form to what he was last year, so I quite like him, and just generally the Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe team looks very strong for this race. Ballerini was 10th in Delonda, so I think he could definitely be a top 20 here. Bissiger, I think, could be top 20 as well. Decathlon don't have like a huge leader. Bissiger has been consistent in the cobbles this year, generally hovering around the top 20, and this is a race more suited to him. So Bissiger I really like. Case Bold, ditto. I think he could be sprinting Astana, trying to get all those UCI points. Persson Hageners, if it's not going to be Wout van Aert, then maybe it'll be him. You never know. Visma, I think, will be all around Wout van Aert, but you never know. He might get his own opportunity. Tarling was ill before Flanders. I don't know how he's going now, but in theory, he's a very good pick for this race. He's got all the power that you need to be doing well in this race. And Mick van Dijk was also in the top 20 of this race last year, so him and Tim van Dijk and Piffy and Meus is a hell of a team for them to be taken into this race. The 8 credit riders, you do see sprinters doing okay, fighting it out for minor placings, so somebody like Bittner. Fedorov was, I think, 15th in this race last year, which still gets you about 200 points about kind of low down in the rankings. So it's certainly worthwhile thinking about riders who might be in the top 20 who are a little bit cheaper. Michels was 9th in this race last year, a little bit out of nowhere, so you might want to go with him again. Segart and Brent Van Moor, again, fit the archetype of somebody who should be doing well in this race. They're tall, powerful Belgians, so they're pretty much the quintessential Paris Roubaix rider. Watson might sprint for the minor placings for Ineos if he can make it far enough in. The 6 credit riders, Boivin was in that 2021 edition where Colbrelli won. He was inside the top 10, so maybe he could do something the same. I expect a lot of people will pick Matthew Brennan. He's good in the wet and cold, but like I said about Persson Hageners, I think they'll be all in around Wout van Aert, so I don't know what sort of leaderships Brennan's going to get, whether he's just going to be working on the front, but he's in such fantastic form, it's sort of hard to look past him, and your alternatives aren't that great in the 6 credit bracket, so you may as well take a risk on Brennan, is sort of how I see it, unless you wanted to play it nice and safe with assist points. Who else have you got? Speaking of assist points, you could go with Dan Holer, for example. He could get assist points on Pedersen. You could also go with Kubish. You know, as a sprinter, maybe he finishes inside the top 25. That won't be too bad. You get about 120 points for that. You might decide to go with Adrien Petit, who's been in the top 10 3 times in this race. He is very good at pulling a performance out for Paris-Roubaix. He hasn't done it for the last 2 years, and so it's a little bit up in the air as to whether he's going to be able to actually do it, but he seems to always pull a surprise out for Roubaix, so Petit I wouldn't be looking over too quickly. You got the 2 Alpecin guys of Ricard and Plancart, if you just wanted assist points on potentially Van der Poel and Philipsen being on the podium, and other than those guys, Taco van der Hoorn likes to get in a breakaway. And so does Max Walker. You might get the 2 Swifts in the breakaway as well, but realistically, I'd probably go with Brennan or the Alpecin guys. And then the 4 credit riders, there's not really that much to be going at. There are 2 riders for Groupama FDJ. Cyril Barth is one, Eddie Louis is the other one. So I'd say you could go with those just for the assist points on Stefan Kung. Other than them, you're really playing a little bit of breakaway bingo, where you might go with Timo Rosen. He was in the breakaway last week, as I kind of expected. Weisstoffer is very good at getting in breakaways too, but this is a different style of breakaway formation where it doesn't just kind of go off the front and it's left. Like the breakaway is hard fought for in Paris-Roubaix, and I'm not sure whether Weisstoffer will have an easy time as he kind of usually does to get in the breakaway. So for me, I might just play it safe and go with Groupama riders and hope that Kung finishes on the podium. This is my team at the moment: Van der Poel, Pedersen, Ganna, Fedorov, Plancart and Ricard. Obviously, like I said, you might well decide to go with not Barons, Brennan. Not Beastrom, Brennan. might decide to go with something like this. I quite like this team. It doesn't have Pogačar in there, and this is going to be another race like San Remo where I'm probably not going to pick Pogačar, and I am going to be watching the race in constant fear. But I quite like this team. I think that Pedersen and Ganna are, for this race, at a good price. Obviously, I know the prices stay the same, but you know what I mean. For this race, I'd say that Pedersen is almost worth more than 26, and I'd say that Ganna is almost worth more than 22. I quite like Fedorov for just a top 20, Ricard for assist points, Brennan might snag a top 20 because he's in very good form. And I quite like it. My alternative style of team would be to go not with Ganna, but go with a 16 credit rider, so that might be Piffy or Turnison. And then I'd put those onto a 6 credit rider to get a 12 credit rider, which I think would be Tim van Dijker. So I could go with something like that. But I tried last week to be clever, to really maximise my points, and it really just didn't work out. So I might just go with the kind of Ganna and assist points and just play it safe. I don't think it'll be like the winning team, but I just want some strong, consistent points to try and build up a little bit of ranking. So let me know what you're thinking in the comment section. Actually, quickly, just before I kind of shoot off, I'll show you my women's team at the moment, which is Kopecky, Balsamo, Giuseppe, Kat Ferguson, Borghetti, and Pauline Ferrand-Prévot. I quite like it. Obviously, the alternative would be to go with Lorena Wiebes here and then swap out somebody like Borghetti and Giuseppe for some 6 credit riders, maybe like, I don't know, Imogen Wolf and somebody like that. And then in the Spring Classics game, the one with the transfers, I have made 2 transfers. I brought Van der Poel back in instead of Merlier, and then I swapped Philipsen for Pedersen. So I've got Pedersen, Van der Poel, Pogačar and Kung going into this race, and I've still got 12 credits left to go moving into the Ardennes period, so this is kind of quite on track for where I'm wanting to be at this moment. So let me know what you're thinking in the comment sections down below. Who are you thinking of going with for any number of the competitions? If you want to give an update on all 3 of them, go for it. And any riders which I missed, be sure to put them. Let me know as well. And all there's left to say is to stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next video. Salut.